Good afternoon and welcome. You are going to have a tour now of your new motorhome. All right. I'm going to go through the outside of the vehicle first of all, and then we'll tour around the inside. We'll start off by the caravan door. It comes with an additional security feature, which is this Fiamma D-lock. Using a key which goes into here, you release the lock. It enables you to be able to pull the handle down and lock it round into position, and it stops any further action of opening the caravan habitation door. Can also be used as a grab rail, so when you're getting in and out of the van, it's there for you to hang on to as well. Always make sure that they are locked away to stop them from being used or tampered with when you're inside the van. Externally, you've got ventilation for the fridge so that the fridge can breathe when it's in use. It's important you don't lean anything up against these that stops that from occurring, because the fridge will start to get warm and it will struggle to keep cold. Further on, you have your toilet cassette. Inside the toilet, you have a flap, a lever, which has to be closed, all right, before you can actually remove the cassette itself. To remove the cassette, pull up on the green tab, pull firmly towards you, and then the cassette will come out of the body of the van. On a campsite, you'll have collection points for these to be emptied into. You take the grey cap off of the top completely, like so, and then tip the whole unit up. And as you're doing so, you're pressing this green button here, and it's allowing the waste to flow out of the base. Before you load it back in, they suggest a measuring cup of the base chemical. It's usually a green solution. It's environmentally friendly. It's diluted with about 1 litre to 2 litres of water, depending on the way that you want to use it. Give it a little swirl round before you load it back in, and then dock it back in like so. Should go in with a nice firm clunk, meaning that it's all ready and engaged and fit for use. Close the door over, push in on the latch, and obviously it can be relocked as well. Towards the back of the van, you've got a garage locker which goes underneath the bed section. Left by the previous owner, you've got a mains cable and also the main vehicle cover. I would try and use those covers through the winter months. All right, they can sweat a little bit, so maybe on a blue sky day, draw the cover off. There are 2 parts to the awning assembly. I'll demonstrate the awning rollout. I'll explain where those rods go though once we've got the awning rolled out. So, close the door over, make sure that the habitation door is shut as well. Insert the T up into the slot, and then you begin the twisting process, and it should fire out the awning. The awning will extend to about 2.5 metres onto the outside of the van. They are designed as sunshades. In wet or windy conditions, it's imperative that you put them away. It's a bit of a fiddle sometimes getting these poles out, but they go into there. So, clipped up into the front of the pelmet, you've got 2 legs. They're spring-loaded onto these triangular sections. This actually illustrates quite well that they're actually round the wrong way. When they go back in, they should be with the T-piece flush against the inside of the pelmet. If they're round the other way, it can cause a push out on the middle of the pelmet section. Down onto the floor, push down to the floor, and then lock off with the spatula. They are quite firm, all right? So you will feel just on the point that they're about to break, but that will then lock it off. You repeat the same with the opposite side. I would suggest that you possibly use in mild conditions, windy conditions, I would suggest that you probably use a tie-down strap as well, just to give it additional security. But if you're going away from the vehicle for the day, or if you're going to bed at night, I would wind the awning back in. We'll just push that other leg bracket back round the other way so that it's nice and neat and ready for it to be wound back in. Oh, tension bar. Tension bar's in the garage locker. It docks into here and it goes back onto the roller section underneath the pelmet. All right, it's there just to give you some more structural rigidity to the awning because it's such a large, long unit. tee back up into the slot and then wind it back in like so. Again, a nice positive click indicating that it's gone back in properly. And stow your leg and your winding handles back away. Bike rack refitted onto the back for you. So undo the little toggle strap, pull up your base arms and then fold the deck down so that it clunks into position. Secure your wheel hubs through the lower straps, and then on the crossbars you've got these extension arms which come out, and again if you just manipulate the top of the bracket it allows those sections to drop down and then secure the top section nice and firmly. These will swivel slightly so for different styles of frame that you might come across or have, and then fold it back up and use the securing strap again just to pull it all together. If you decide you don't want the bike rack on the back of the van, then it's a couple of 10mm bolts which is secured through this bottom plate. Remove the bolts completely and then just lift off and unhook the top section back down. On the opposite side you've got your gas locker. Always make sure that when the van's not in physical use that the gas bottles are switched off. So you have these two brass nuts, one on top of each cylinder, and that enables you to isolate the gas supply. When you turn the gas on, you only need to turn it about half a turn to a full turn. Depress these green buttons, all right, and what that allows then, it's a crash sensor on these regulators. It allows then the gas flow to come through into the system. There's a changeover valve mounted on top of the regulator. You can select which cylinder you're using, so you can see by following my finger that we're actually using this cylinder now. If we turn it through 180 degrees and turn on the opposite cylinder, then obviously you'll be using that one instead. We'll turn it back so that we can make use of it. When you want to change over a cylinder and replace it, then the spanner goes onto the main nut and it's left-hand thread to undo it. Use a little bit of firm press and you should be able to release that nut and then remove the cylinder accordingly. So we've got our gas on. We'll run up the gas inside the van a little bit later on. Further down on this side of the van, you've got the main exhaust vent. So when the room heating or the water heating system is running on gas, you'll get a little bit of a condensation plume coming around there because it's burning the gas off on that unit. And then adjacent to that, you've got an external hatch flap, which goes then. Briefly, you've got your fresh water tank located here, and it's the corresponding drain valve. Drain valve for the grey water, so that's the water which goes down inside the plug holes. Your mains hookup comes up through the flap, and then behind it, we'll talk about that right at the end, the thermostatic control valve for the water heater. So first things first, you want to put some water into it, unscrew the cap, simple and straightforward, just a hose pipe straight into the system, all right, and let it gradually fill up. Obviously make sure that this inspection hatch is tightly closed, otherwise you can have water dribbling back into the body of the van. If you want to put in solvents or solutions for cleaning, for sterilising, then you can do so, but obviously flush them through before you start to use it for drinking water. Winter storage, it's imperative that you open up the drain valve. So we'll just turn this one through 90 degrees and you'll hear the water then splashing down underneath, discharging and draining off that tank. Grey water's done in exactly the same way, so you'll drive over a drain or a gully, attach an extension hose if you so wish, and that enables you then to drain off the water. This is the water from the sink, from the shower tray, from the vanity unit. I'll pull the mains cable out of the way just for a moment, just so that you can see what I'm doing with the water heater. These water heaters are fitted with thermostatically controlled drain valves. So in the event of the air temperature in this space going below about 2 degrees centigrade, this black tap, black bodied here with the blue tap on top, rotates through 90 degrees automatically, sensing a temperature drop, and it allows the content of the water heater to discharge out onto the floor. To reset it, you have to do two things. First of all, turn it back through 90 degrees, and then there's this small blue button at the bottom that has to be pressed back in. That will then allow you to refill the water heater, which we'll talk about later on. There's a little pull cord just behind it. It has two positions on it, and what it allows to occur is the blown air heating system. So when the van is being used through the winter months, it allows some of the blown air heating system to actually circulate into this space and obviously prohibit the action of freezing. With the mains hookup, you would typically plug into the side of your van first of all. So this comes up through the floor, through a little access hatchway, and then into the side of the van. And then you would connect to your sight post in the second instance. That way you're not taking a live lead from the sight post over to the side of the van. Fuel filler cap, ignition key, just inserted in, all right, twist off, and that allows you then to fill up with your diesel fuel. Seat operation, just while we're on the passenger side, you've got height adjustment on the seat as well as backrest adjustment, and that applies also to the driver's seat as well. Little wheels on the inside of the rollers for the position of the armrests. Underneath the passenger seat, you have your leisure battery, and you also have the split charger and fuses for the mains charging system also as well. Highly unlikely you're going to need to go under there on a regular basis, but it's good to know that they are there. Underneath the passenger floor and underneath that inspection hatch, you've got your engine battery. We'll talk about how you jump start when we go under the bonnet in a minute, but you don't have to get access to that to do so. Just inside, on the end of the dashboard, you have your bonnet release. Pull the lever firmly down towards you, and that should enable you to get under the bonnet. And just before we go outside and go around the bonnet section, you've got these slide up lines, magnetic strips onto the end of them. I would still use silver screens on the outside just to give you some additional insulation in the winter months, but for keeping the sun out during the summer and nighttime use, they're absolutely perfect, and they fit up onto the frame. It's a similar arrangement for the ones for the cab. These two have got little squeeze buttons together, and again there's a magnetic strip on either side, and they join together around the rear view mirror. In the middle of the bonnet, above the Knaus badge, you'll find the press lever for the bonnet release. You should be able to then just pull it straight up and dock it in, like so. Over on the left-hand side, we start off with your screen wash. You will have to access that with a funnel in order to top it up. You'll need to undo these 3 clips if you want to get access into the power steering, the brake fluid, or the aircon reservoirs that are there. Oil filler cap into the front, like so, and then the dipstick is mounted in front of it, just a pull loop to pull up through, and that enables you to get access into that. Jump starting, negative would be attached onto this bolt, and then down on the right hand side of the engine bay, underneath this inspection cap here, is located a metal bracket, and it has the flap on it, or the paddle on it, for the positive to be connected to, and then jump start from that point there. Your VIN plates obviously identify the weight groups and categories that it sits into. This is a 3850 chassis. Ready. So open up the door onto the side. You've got a couple of light switches just inside the door, which are controlled for the 12-volt system. All right, they control the ones above the door, and there's a separate one for the main interior lights as well. Below that, you have your electric step operation. When you first come into the van, you have a 12-volt control panel up above your head. This one at the moment is all turned on, so we'll deselect all of the features, press and hold on the blue button in the center, and the panel goes dark and everything switches off. Press and hold on the blue button for a couple of seconds to turn it back on. You'll hear a little bleep out to you, and then after the display has settled down, it'll give you some initial displays. So it shows you the time, it shows you at the moment that we are plugged into mains, it shows you the energy level within the leisure battery, and it shows you the level within the main fresh water tank. If you depress on these symbols below, then it will give you an actual physical reading as to what's within those tanks. That shows the wastewater, which at the moment is empty. The fresh water was previous to that. Battery level, there's your leisure battery showing 14 volts because we're currently plugged into the mains. Press it again, should show the vehicle battery. When you're plugged into the mains, only the leisure battery is being charged. If you were wanting to charge up the engine battery, then you would need to probably plug in a separate charging system to the vehicle for that to happen. After a few seconds it defaults back. And finally, little temperature gauge there telling you what the interior and exterior temperatures are around the van. Over on the right hand side, a master 12-volt switch which turns on all of the 12-volt supply within the van, so lights, 12-volt sockets, igniters, so on and so forth. Separate switch for your outside awning light, so you see a bit of a glow on the back of my hand because we've got the awning light on outside. And then your water pump. Use your water pump on demand. I wouldn't leave it on overnight. I wouldn't leave it on if I was going out during the day. If there is a bit of a drip from a tap, etc., then the pump will keep activating against it. This little switch down here enables you to turn on the awning light and use it from the leisure battery, or it can go into the opposite direction and be used from the engine battery instead. So always choose your leisure battery. You've got air temperature sensors which are tied into the heating systems, all right, and then monitoring obviously the overall temperature within the van. So if the door's been left open, you may well hear the heating systems accelerate up when they engage. Right, we'll leave all those on for a moment. Room heating controls. We've already established our gas supply outside. We've already connected up to the mains. I'll show you how to prime the water tank for hot water later on, but we'll concentrate on the room heating controls here. So if it's not already showing a display, press and hold on this one for a couple of seconds and it will light up. When you first click it on, you'll see a series of symbols come up along the top there. So one indicating the temperature within the van, one for your water heating, a selection control for the gas or the electric type that you're going to be using. You have one for the fan speed controls, a timer option, as well as an actual physical clock, and then just a settings adjustment on the base. So I'm going to start with the fan control over on the right hand side. In warm weather, you might want to just recirculate the airflow around. So press and hold on that one for a couple of seconds, and you should then be able to go into it and just use it as a circulation vent. So select the word vent, and then you can increase or decrease the speed by rolling your finger around on the wheel, and it will just recirculate the air inside the van. It's not air conditioning, but at least it's giving you some sort of kind of airflow within the van itself. To deselect it, press it again, turn it back to the off position, all right, and that will cut out that vent operation. At the other end, when you want heating, you go on to your room temperature control, you press and hold in, and then you select the centigrade setting that you want to go to. Comfort zone, somewhere between about 18 and 22 degrees. All right, confirm on that one. And whilst it's trying to get the air temperature up to that level, you'll see this flame symbol at the top here will begin to flash. If it's established that and it's happy that it's got to that temperature, then the flame will go solid, indicating that it's set that room. So this one's now started to flash because it's cold in here, and then shortly you'll hear the circulation fan start to kick in. It will go to a maximum of 30 degrees if you so wish. We'll turn that one off for a moment and we'll go on to the water system. Water is a similar option. So having got water into the hot water tank, you would then go onto it, press the button. The eco mode will keep the water running at around about 40 degrees centigrade. There is a boost mode which will bring the water up to 60 degrees centigrade. All right. When it goes into the boost mode, it will suspend, if you're choosing to use the room heating system, it will suspend the room heating operation at the same time. So we're going to choose that boost mode for a moment, and then it will then generate our hot water. Next control along is your energy selection. So at the moment this is set up in the twin sparks, as it were, indicating that we're using the higher level of mains electric. Draws around about 7 amps approximately, so you might have to be cautious if you're maybe on a weaker amperage site. You can turn down and use the lower level setting, so you put it into EL1 and you just get a single, and that halves the output to 3.5 amps. Obviously it will take a little bit longer for the water to heat up if you use that setting. If you are wild camping, then you have the option of just using it into the gas mode, all right, and it will take purely from the cylinders, and again, water heating or room heating or both, whichever you require. There might be certain instances, if it's exceptionally cold, that you might want to use both powers. Now, it doesn't make the water any hotter, it doesn't make the system any warmer, as it were, but what it enables you to do is either give you a gas and a low level electric, or a gas and a high level electric. So if it's winter time, for example, it will speed up the process for getting the van actually nice and warm and getting your water up to temperature as well. What I've shown you to date is that you can use these systems in a manual basis, all right? If you wish to, you can set the clock up to the right time. So we'll come back to that one just there, and you can choose the time settings that you want it to be. And then in conjunction with that, when you go back to the timer symbol there, you can set up some basic functions, set it up so that tomorrow at 8 o'clock, the water heater will come on and start to heat up. The room heating will kick in and start to run to, say, 22 degrees. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it will cut out if that's what you require. Final one is just your settings option. And that's simply just a setup for things like the temperature, the brightness of the control panel, any language settings, any adjustments you want to make. So if you want to read the clock in 12-hour rather than 24-hour intervals instead. And that concludes. To switch the water heater off, press and hold in on this one for a couple of seconds, and it will read the word off and shut down. So we're now into the dining space at the front. There's a little handy storage locker into here. One thing to be wary of, you've got the blown hair heating vents coming up into this section. Be careful if you put a loose item into here, then it doesn't crush or damage any of these cardboard tubes. You'll find them occasionally under the bed spaces and things like that as well, so just be warned that they can be knocked or damaged. Underneath the forward facing seat, you've got one single main socket which you can utilise for battery charging and phones, etc. And then actually physically under the seat, you've got the water heater, your RCD box, your fuse box, all located there as well. There's also a battery isolator switch. If you were carrying out maintenance on the leisure battery, or if you wanted to switch off the 12-volt system, then turn the red isolator key through 90 degrees and remove it, and that would switch off all of the 12-volt for the habitation side of the back of the vehicle. Obviously, if you do that when you're driving the vehicle and the system is physically switched off, it no longer charges the leisure battery. Mains hookup. If these switches are in the off position, then you won't have any main supply coming in. Periodically, you can plug into the main supply. You can lift or bring forward the switch on so that it says on, and then carry out a safety test. Press down on the orange switch, it should automatically trip out, indicating that the main supply is safe for you to use. We'll bring both of those switches over. And then, say, at the back, you've got a bank of fuses for the 12-volt interior operations. So there'll be things like the ignition, 12-volt sockets, lighting circuits, water pumps, etc. Obviously, if you're finding having to replace the same fuse on a regular basis, then it's the item it's connected to that's possibly at fault. Right. I wouldn't use any of this space underneath here for storing of any possessions, because you've got the water tank here. It does get quite warm and it needs a certain amount of ventilation around it so that it can function correctly. Fold that one back down. If we just put the base cushion back in, then it gives you foot space, and you can obviously use both of the forward facing seats. But if you want to travel with it as the L-shaped lounge, then there is a two-part section which goes in like so, and then your various infill cushions go back in to position along with the base cushion and allow you to put it back in as a standard lounge. Table controls. With this lever's pulled down, it enables you to slide the table backwards and forwards, and it also aids with the rotation of the table as well. And then lock it off into position. You would obviously never push the table down in this position, but this is just to illustrate for the purpose of the video. But you've got this pull-out lever as well, and if it's in the downward position, it will enable you then to push the table right the way down to make up the front single bed. All right. So with the table in the push-down position, there's some additional cushions which are stored elsewhere in the van. They push down into position, and they then quickly enable you to make up into the front single bed. So the releasing mechanism for the swivel seat is the same on both the driver and passenger seat. Pull the lever forward and then twist the seat into position. I'd always recommend that you're out of the seat when you try and turn it around. Lock it back in. Should lock back into position before beginning transit. Fitted just inside the caravan door, you have a fly screen. Pull firmly across like so, and it will stop some of the flies and go in. Not necessarily midge proof. What you do need to be careful with if it's a windy day is that the door doesn't blow shut and take the fly screen with it, because of the position of the bin, and if the bin is removed, the position of the handle, obviously it will break the fly screen. You've got some useful hidden storage around the front end of the van as well. So there's a storage access hatchway that goes into there. You can also access in from the tops of the seats as well for loading in. And underneath the carpet, there's an extra little hidden piece of storage. Push down on the little finger flap, pull it up, and you've got some extra little bits of hidden storage into there as well. You can remove the headrests simply by pulling up firmly on each headrest in turn, and that would then enable you to drop the worktop back down, give you some extra worktop space if you're cooking or preparing food. Fold them back up. They're not handed in any way, so you can just push them back in like so. So for your water supply, we've already shown you how to fill up with water on the outside. We've shown you how to use the water heater. If you're setting up the water system for the first time after it's been drained down for winter, for instance, you'll notice on the kitchen tap when you pull it forward, there is a red and blue claro that appears. So if the lever is brought all the way towards me, then that gives you your hot water supply. You've heated it up earlier, and you'll see that the water's coming through nice and consistently. Had the system been drained down, you would probably have about 2 minutes of aeration coming through as it's pushing the air out of the system and allowing it to come through. When you're heating the hot water up, it takes around about 20 to 40 minutes or so for the water to heat up to this temperature as we showed. For the cold water supply, just turn the tap all the way to the left position and you'll get a cold water supply come through, and obviously a mixer of warm and cold water on the midpoint in between. It's important that when you're drawing the water through for the first time to set the water heater up, that you also repeat the process with the bathroom sink and also with the shower as well. So you get that continuity of water within the main fresh water tank and also within the hot water system as well. For the gas operation, these have actually got their, for the hob, you've actually got their own igniters built into them. Push and hold in for a couple of seconds and you'll hear and see the flame come through. Hold it in for the middle one and then push and hold in for the final one, like so. There are no isolators on these lids, so if this flame is, this lid is brought down over the flame, they will continue to burn and they will pop the glass consequently. So make sure everything is nice and cool after you've finished using the system. And isolate accordingly. Storage lockers, just push down on the tabs and that opens up for your cutlery drawer. And then storage lockers below, all the way down to the base. And then there's a release latch and then open up onto this one. And you've got your pull-out baskets, which come forward. Up in the top, underneath the sink, you've got individual isolator taps for the individual appliances. If you're nervous, if you're anxious about the gas supply, then you can choose to isolate the individual units. So we've got the hob, the fridge, the heating system, and the oven grill, all there. At the moment they're all on, they're all in use. Rotate them through 90 degrees and it can isolate the supply to that specific appliance. Turn them back on though, obviously when you want to use them. So with the shower cubicle, you've got a light above the shower head at the back. As I said to you when we were setting up the kitchen supply, even if you don't use the shower that often, it's still important that you draw the water through the system. So you've still got the same mixer tap arrangement, hot and cold. I won't make a mess of the inside of your shower, but turn it on and obviously that then allows the water supply to come through and out of the shower head. Clip it back up into position. Storing the van for winter time, I would go to the additional extent of actually unscrewing the shower head from the hose, and that just allows better ventilation for winter storage. You're leaving the taps open then to allow all of the plumbing around the inside of the van to drain out as well. Your shower doors are held in position by a couple of little straps, each one on each side, and then draw the two together and they form a tight seal, stopping your water from coming out from under. Just make sure that they are strapped back into position because they will rattle around in transit otherwise. But under the carpets either side of the bed, I'll show you this one on the shower side. Again, you've got some more hidden storage components sections, just some little flat box sections which go in underneath the floor. When we move round to the bathroom has a handy extension feature. So if we undo the popper stud on the side, you're actually able, before you even open the door, to extend the wall section out just to give you a wider cubicle if you are using it, and then open the door accordingly and it goes back in to the main frame of the cabin. Down on the floor you've got a ventilation port, so with the blown air heating system on, it allows warm air to be blown up into the bathroom section as well. To make use of the toilet, the top seat section does actually swivel. All right, lift your seat up and there's a grey slider which you pull out towards you, and that allows your waste to go straight through. On the back, above the toilet bowl, you've got this control panel. The centre button is your flush, and it will draw water from the main onboard fresh water tank and allow that water to flush around the inside of the bowl. If the cassette isn't inserted properly, you'll see a warning light come on the top left hand side. There's no separate reservoir for the flushing feature, so that light should never illuminate. And then you have a half and a full marker for the actual cassette itself. So when they're obviously getting to those respective levels, those lights will light up to indicate that it's time to empty the actual cassette itself. Push the slider back over after use, stops any smells or odours coming back up from the bowl when the vehicle is in transit. There is a 240 volt socket mounted beneath the vanity light switch. You have storage lockers going into behind the mirror, and you also have another one underneath the sink as well. And then your plug out, obviously you've got your hot and cold water supplies coming through. So cold water on that side, around to hot water on the other. Should see the steam start to rise shortly because we put the hot water heater on earlier. There's an vent above your head in the bathroom. Pull down on the fly screen, push in on the brown section into the base section and push up accordingly. They can be adjusted into any angle, but it's critical that you make sure that they are drawn down and locked shut before you begin to travel. Up above the headboard of the bed, you've got two central light switches. The one on the left illuminates lights below the bed. The one centrally mounted mounts the ones above the bed, and then you've got your individual spot lamps, like so. For the making up of the bed itself, pull up on the main handle and allow the whole unit to move forward, and obviously rearrange your cushions and bedding accordingly. And then it's the same action to push the bed frame back up. There's a Tambellina door which opens up to give you some space underneath the bed also, as well as your regular wardrobes on either side of the main bed space. And they've got their own interior lights also. Below, you've got an additional main socket and also a USB charging point as a feature of the van. Below, on the opposite side, just the mains socket. That's where we've put the infill cushions for the front third bed, and there's a couple of Knaus blankets which come as part of the accessory pack on this particular van. For the roof light above the bed to work, place both hands on the central grab rail, pull down nice and firmly, and then slide the mechanism towards you, and it allows that main roof light to open up. Again, as part of your departure checks, you need to make sure that all the roof lights and windows are shut, and all side windows are latched onto their innermost positions. You've got a fly screen which comes from one side, or a blind for nighttime use. Pull down on the handle again, slide it back down the ratchets and lock it back into position. Just press up on it just to make sure that it's locked in properly. When the handle's fully depressed, you'll see then that these little hooks sit back into the plastic lugs just there. For the television, it's a firm tug up on the main set. There is a release on the underside of the back plate for it to enable you to swing out. You'll notice on the underside of the TV there's a little red light. If you can't see the red light, there is a separate master on-off switch where my finger is located now, and that will turn off all of the power to that unit. So we'll turn it back on again, and then when you press the red button on the remote control, that red light will go to blue. It will automatically open up the oyster dish on the roof, and the oyster dish, if it's in a position of good satellite reception, should be able to lock on quite quickly, and the television is already pre-tuned for those satellite networks. So after an interval of maybe about 30 seconds to a minute or so, depending on how long it takes for the TV to tune in, you'll probably see that first of all. You should then get a picture come through onto the TV screen. In the ceiling above the lounge area, you've got a winding handle for the opening and operation of your main roof light. Opens up to around about 60 degrees or so. and then you've got again a blind and or a fly screen for day or nighttime use. Enhancement, and then to close the unit back down. Keep winding until you find resistance. You'll know when the roof light's locked into position because you'll see this red tag emerge. Front roof lights and the side windows both operate in the same way. Within the latch, you've got an actual push button, so you need to make sure that they're all depressed in first of all, and then you should be able to push up. The arms themselves are on ratchets, so you'll hear a click point engage when it gets to the first opening position, and then a further click point. Push beyond those click points to allow the roof light to descend. Make sure that all of the latch catches are into position. And again, for driving, you've got the option of just filtering out obviously the light above you, and then a further fly screen function as well, just to act as a diffuser. Operation for all of the side windows. Again, make sure that the buttons are depressed in to release the latches. The arms again are on latch, so again you'll push out to a certain point and you'll find that there's a biting point for the window to sit out on. Push beyond that biting point and it should then enable you to close again. From the tops on these, you've got your fly screen first of all, which locks into one position, or a choice of positions for the positioning of the nighttime blind. So we're now into the cab section of your Knaus. When you start up on these automatic vehicles, you need to make sure that your foot is on the brake clutch pedal. Turn the ignition to the live position, and then you should be able to start the vehicle accordingly. To engage the drive, you'll see that you start in a neutral position. Place your hand onto the main lever and it will change over to a 1 or an auto 1. Auto means that it's in the automatic mode. If it's just into the 1 mode, then it just means that you're now then driving it on the sequential box. So in auto mode, as you're driving along, it'll go up through the gears like a normal automatic. If you want a little bit more driver control, then you can press over on the lever. The auto disappears from the screen and you're now into a sequential mode. As you pull the lever back each time, it will count up through the gears, like so. And then obviously, if you push the lever up towards the dashboard, it'll go down through the sequential box in that mode. To engage reverse, pull the lever over to the right and then pull it back down, and you'll see an R symbol come on the display, and also your reversing camera will show there as well. The rest of the driver features on the stalks, top left hand stalk is your lights, so side lights and then pull back for main beam. Indicator controls, self-explanatory. Below that you have your cruise control and limiter. If you turn it away from you, you'll engage the limiter and you can set up the, it's the cruise control.
Just say 3, 2, 1, cruise control, and then start to talk from there.
3, 2, 1, so you have the cruise control light come on when you turn the toggle on one direction. When you turn it in the opposing direction, it sets it up for a limiter instead. Back onto the steering wheel on the left hand side, you have your radio controls, so you can mute the radio or control the volume, and then your telephone controls for your Bluetooth functions are onto there. I'll just turn the wheel just slightly just so that you can see the wiper controls. So down for an intermittent mode, and then up for a single and double speed option, and obviously pull back for your screen wash. To the right of the steering wheel, You've got your reversing fog, to the right of the steering wheel, you've got your rear fog light, and you've also got your headlamp beam controls as well, so you can adjust if the vehicle is laden in the back to stop dazzling the drivers that are oncoming. Over on the driver's door, you've got your mirror and electric window controls. With the electric mirror, you turn the toggle in the direction of the mirror that you want to adjust, and then just use it like a regular joystick to adjust the mirror accordingly. All 4 mirrors are adjustable, so you can adjust the blind spot mirrors to suit your preferences as well. To draw the mirrors in, there's no electric function for folding the mirrors. You simply have to reach outside the vehicle and pull the mirrors back in manually, but there is a bite point when they go back for ease of use. Ventilation controls in the middle. You can adjust the speed of the fan on the lower left-hand dial. You can adjust the temperature control on the outer wheel, so we've gone from hot back down to cold. Depress the center button and that activates your air conditioning. Push the lever on the right-hand side round to the right position, and that will recirculate to improve the quality of the air conditioning, as opposed to an open vent. And then your directional controls from windscreen and feet and face, and then the face vents as well. On the bottom row, you've got your additional controls. This will activate the heated wing mirrors. With the vehicle doors all shut, you can depress this and it will activate the central locking. Center hazard light switch. ASR is an anti-slip mode. You drive with the function always on, so if you accelerate on a loose surface, it'll give you engine braking, which will stop the wheels from slipping. You can choose to disable it, perhaps if you were driving onto wet grass or perhaps ice, so that you had direct throttle to wheel control. There's a USB charging point and also a 12-volt charging point as well. 2 glove boxes over on front of the passenger, a small one at the lower level, the higher one up at the top. That also has a vent in the back of it, so you have got the air conditioning on. It'll work like a mini fridge. Obviously, if you've got heat coming through, it will do the complete opposite. And then a firm tug up on this one, and you have a clipboard as well. There are accessories which you can buy from Fiat if you want to put on sat navs and other like functions for phone holders, for example. Centrally, you've got your radio controls. You've already seen the reversing camera comes on automatically when you engage reverse.
To help the police.
But you've got your radio controls just there. You can choose between radio for FM as well as DAB controls. And it can also go into a navigation mode as well, like so. There's a USB port below the radio central unit above the cup holders, and again that can also be used for plugging in media which feeds into the radio unit as well. So the alarm system is activated by using the remote control. Press the center button on the remote control, the padlock close symbol, and that will secure the vehicle. It locks the habitation door and the cab doors. There are sensors mounted at the top of the windscreen on the left and the right hand side. They look like little mini speakers. They are the ultrasonic sensors. Above the bed, there's a PIR sensor as well, so anyone getting into the back of the vehicle or forcing their way through the side windows may well activate the PIR. And then on the doors and on the bonnet, there are either micro switches or pin switches, which again, if the circuit on those is disrupted, that also causes the alarm to go off. So make sure that all apertures are closed tightly and securely before you depress the button to secure the van. So that was the handover for your Knaus. We sincerely hope on behalf of Highland Campervans you're going to enjoy and get lots of miles and lots of smiles out of these vans. But if you do have any questions, anything that you want to ask us, good, bad or indifferent, just pick up the phone, drop us an email and we'll be there for you.